more studios than we currently can, by saying that places such as Bellevue that are slated for growth under the Growth Management Act aren't allowed to decide they're not going to accept the share of growth they're supposed to accept. The Growth Management Act has been great at preventing growth outside the urban growth boundaries and completely ineffective at actually having the growth happen inside the urban growth boundaries. And so those things all need to happen in order to solve the problem at a systemic level, so that beyond just veterans, everybody can afford housing. Because frankly, it's great for me to talk about how the minimum wage should be higher. It should. I fully support, the ballot initiative that'll raise it to $13.50 an hour. But at $13.50 an hour, you can't afford rent on any place to live in this region. On $15 an hour, you can't afford rent on any place you can live in this region. And the problem there is housing prices, not much greater than it is wages.
So I'll begin with, I am a huge supporter of the military. My father was in the Air Force, my brother was a sergeant in the Army, my father-in-law an Army Ranger, Lieutenant Colonel. One of my newest supporters is the recently retired Lieutenant Commander from the Navy and a SEAL. And I have an incredible respect for the military. I think that the answer that we can focus in on, yes, housing is incredibly important, and expanding the housing supply. There's something that Darcy mentioned with regards to the Growth Management Act. What happens is, in this intergenerational wealth transfer, there's something called not in my backyard. And that's a big problem. So not only do you have incredibly thick and onerous building codes and rules and regulations, but you can't get the density because people fight it every tooth and nail. And that's part of the problem. Whether it be what they call in-law apartments around here, or extra apartments, or studios, or micro-housing. So I think that the rules have to definitely change a lot to build a bigger supply, because that will bring down the cost, or at least stabilize it. But the bigger problem with veterans happens to be that for those who need social services, all different types of help, that's underfunded. We need a better outreach program. And from a federal level, yeah, they've fallen down on the job. I don't think they've done a good job, but from a state level to what we can do, I would commit to doing more within our resources. And a lot of times, what we see happen over and over again is that they're using the same programs over and over again. And there's no innovation. There's no one saying, what can we do a little bit better to make these resources stretch? How can we make these programs more effective? Because if they've been doing the same thing and these problems keep occurring, isn't it time to look at things and maybe do it a little bit differently? So those are some of the perspectives I'd like to bring to Olympia. I will also add this. In 2011, the state legislature passed a bipartisan bill, passed the House 94-4. And the bipartisan bill, signed by then Governor Christine Gregoire, passed the House, passed the Senate, she signed it. It was a veterans preferential hiring bill. And what's important about that is in the state of Washington, which I think was either first or second in the nation, they took away any legal barriers for private employers to give preferential hiring to veterans. And I thought that was spectacular, because if you've served your country, you should get points for that. You did something special. What I found out just recently is that the person I'm running against, Judy Clibber, she was one of 4 people that voted against that bill. I was appalled. A bipartisan bill was voted against by my opponent. So I agree, we need to do more. I would commit to doing what's available, and I also want to honor our veterans. Thank you.
Okay, I am a veteran, and I will tell you that I have been to Washington, D.C. to advocate for more services to veterans. I don't know if any of you know this, but we have a congresswoman on the east side that is in the Spokane-Colville district, and I can't think of the number right now, but she is actually sponsoring a bill to, is that 5? To privatize the VA services. And here's what that means. When we privatize a program, there's no responsibility to anybody. Private agencies do what they want as long as they're getting the money. And that's not okay. That is not okay for veterans. Now, if you go to the county, their HUD has created some vouchers for homeless veterans, and it's a great system, but here's the problem. Homeless veterans don't know about it, because unless they go to the county and ask for help, they're not going to find out about it. So, being able to get that resource out to the veterans that are homeless. There's a lot of services out there, but again, getting that information out to the homeless veterans. Now let's talk about the veteran and education. My son-in-law is a Marine, was a Marine. He has PTSD, he's a Purple Heart recipient. When he first got back home, he tried to go to college, but it was very difficult for him. So in essence, he dropped out, ended up with a big bill, had to pay the VA back, and also whatever else he got, he had to pay back. Getting a little bit more stable in the home. You know, what we need in our education system is to not fail our veterans when they're going through an episode of PTSD. And that's a really important situation, because we need to help our veterans be successful when they're attempting to get an education. So, making sure that the resources are available to the veterans. We have come a little ways, but we got a lot more further to go. We need to take care of our veterans, and a lot of times it's veterans helping veterans, because that's the only way we get that information out, is when somebody says, hey, I know this vet, and then we get the information for them.
Thank you.
My dad was a Vietnam veteran, a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine. You might know where I get some of my tenacity from. The way we honor our veterans is by ending these senseless wars. I want to make that point. And we have a lot of systemic problems right now. And again, one of the reasons I'm running as a libertarian, a third-party option, is because the two parties have been in control and have created this problem. So to take care of our veterans, number one, I think we need to stop senseless wars. But that's a federal issue. And the VA program, I'm fairly familiar with some of the problems in the program because of my father. He was 85% disabled, I guess, so he interacted and was complaining quite a bit. Again, a government program. This is an example of why I believe the way I do. And the idea, I have to disagree here with you just for a second, the idea that privatization couldn't offer us a better system. I mean, if you think about it, all of the things that we don't like, the government is in control of. We're kind of upset about transportation right now. We're upset about our healthcare system. You know, you folks, you millennials, unfortunately, I hate to say it, you're going to be paying for the baby boomers. We're upset about our education system.
DMV.
We're
DMV's
upset, excuse me?
DMV's not very fun.
You're upset about that. We're upset about the lack of freedoms we have. We're becoming more and more oppressed. These are all government created. And red and blue. And our government, by the way, is controlled by the very entities that we don't like, the too big to fail corporations. But let's think about this. What are things that you like? Well, most of us like our cell phones. Yes, sir?
So just to be clear, to address the homelessness issue, you want to tear down the two parties?
Well, there are actually some folks in the two parties that, like Mr. Appleby here, there are a handful in the two, you know, I don't want to paint with that broad a brush, okay? I've been in Olympia a little bit, and I've worked with some of these folks, and there are some good people. So I'm not painting with that broad brush, but on a systemic level, do I think we need to break up the two-party system? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that that is what's fostering the situation that we have right now. And so that's why I'm running the way I am here in Washington. We need to change the conversation. We need to look at the systemic problems. Look at who's been in control in Washington State while these problems have been fostering. Come on, guys. You guys are smart. You know?
And
It's...
we have one, I know we have one more question, so.
Okay, just so you know, I could go on, Saturday, or Monday nights at 7 o'clock, I'm on Facebook Live. I'd love to have your questions. I want to represent, not rule over you, and that requires a two-way street. And so I'm starting that conversation, and I will continue it if I'm elected. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Great, so we have time for